Let's return to that weaker than expected US non-farm payrolls number, the impact likely to have on markets, and we can return to IG's Chris Weston now in Melbourne. Chris, good to see you again. Thanks for your patience. So just in terms of what you were saying there about that weak read on the US jobs market, we've got a host of Fed speakers, including Ben Bernanke, out this week with commentary. Will they sort of guide, the pace of tapering, forward guidance?
Yeah, I think Ben Bernanke's speech will be interesting, but he is outgoing, so he gets a little bit less credence in the market. He's going to be talking about the challenges for central bankers. Two of the people that I'm going to be looking at for very closely are going to be Richard Fisher and Charles Plosser. Now, these guys come onto the board and are voting members for this year, and they're speaking this week as well. So both of them are considered hawks at the margin there. Certainly Richard Fisher's an uber hawk. So I think their discussion is going to be very interesting, because after the weak non-farm payrolls, people were saying, what happens now with monetary policy? Does it mean that in the January meeting, are we going to hold off from tapering? What's going to happen going forward? I don't think it's going to happen. I think James Bullard's comments. James Bullard is an outgoing member. He is not voting this year. He was a voter last year, but he did come out and say that one payrolls report doesn't make a trend, and I think the markets run with that as well. I mean, look at the price action on the S&P. Happy to buy stocks off the lows. So I think there's about 8 different Fed speakers speaking this week, but the two I'm looking for most closely are those two new incoming voters who are going to get that much more credence on the board now. And if you actually look at the composition of the Fed going forward, it's actually a lot more hawkish for US dollar bulls because of the people who are coming off. We know that James Bullard, Eric Rosengren and Charles Evans are coming off the board. We know that Stanley Fisher is going to be coming on as well. So I think the composition plays into forward guidance. People are looking at the forward guidance that the Fed have stipulated. But what's important is that there's a whole new team of people coming onto the Fed, so that forward guidance could change and could be altered at any stage because of the new people coming on. I also think US earnings are going to be majorly important this week. Expectations have been ratcheted down a little bit in the last couple of weeks. We've seen probably about 88% of companies who have come out with guidance have been downgrades. That's the weakest, I think, confession season, or the most negative confession season since 2006. So there's plenty to dig your teeth in. I think certainly the price action on the S&P is looking a little bit indecisive at best right now.
And what does all of that mean for the open on our market today?
Yeah, we're looking for a flat market. The SPY future's pretty good gauge there. Gold producers are naturally going to be in focus today, given the spike up that we saw from the poor jobs reports, and the market's, I think, ill-informed decision to believe that the Fed are going to be less aggressive with stimulus and the tapering side of things. But certainly companies like SLR, Silver Lake Resources, down 16.7% the last 5 days. Huge elevated levels of short interest in the stock, should do quite nicely today. I told you, talking about the Indonesian side of things as well, in terms of their view to try and ban exports of minerals. Western areas naturally should do quite well. I think anyone who doesn't produce in Indonesia should do nicely. Nickel prices were up about 3% on Friday, so that should be an interesting place to be as well. BHP's ADR, if you're looking just in that space, is up 0.4%. Pretty flat read on the day. And a little bit of a domestic data, more on the finance side. Home loans number, for example, some ANZ job numbers. Pretty flat day, and I think people are going to be saying to themselves, well, it's the start of a new week, the real start of the new trading year, which now we've got non-farm payrolls out of the week, and it really will be US earnings, I think, which are going to dictate the global picture this week.
Chris, as always, thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
Chris Weston.